All right, so here's the deal. Learning programming in 2024 can kind of be a headache because there's so many freaking languages out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a few different articles that have been written by blogs and people and kind of review them and tell you what I think. Personally, you don't have to listen to me. You can go on a limb and do whatever you want. But I think I might have some insight that could help. All right, so the first one we're looking at is IEEE Spectrum, and the IEEE is, oh gosh, what does it even stand for? The Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. So a bunch of really smart people. And essentially what they're doing is they're breaking it down based on spectrum, jobs, and trending. When I looked at this article, it said spectrum ranking is weighted to reflect the interests of the typical IEEE member. So I think this probably does hold some weight, and it's probably pretty accurate. So let's look at it. It says in 2023, Python, Java, C++, C, JavaScript, C#, SQL, and Go are probably the top ones or the top dogs when it comes to the weighted. And I think this is actually pretty good and pretty accurate. If I was to tell somebody to start learning programming today, Python is definitely going to be up there. However, I think it's really good to understand something like C or C++ before diving into Python, because you'll understand things like object-oriented programming, what data types and how they work together, how to loop, very basic things that I think are super important when going to a language that's not as performant as a compiled language like C or C++. Python is what's called interpreted, so it can be a little less performant, and you might run into situations in your career if you go down the Python route, especially if you start working in AI and ML, where you're like, hey, this actually isn't the most performant language. I need to use something like C++ or C, and you might have a headache going back to those languages. So, maybe start there. I also think JavaScript is a great place if you want to make things more functional on the web side. So, obviously, JavaScript has kind of broadened its horizons, and it doesn't just do web and internet programming now. However, it is the backbone of the web. So it's probably not going anywhere unless someone finds some genius way to abstract it out. But I do think JavaScript is really invaluable. It's super visual to learn. You're probably going to pair it with something like HTML and CSS. HTML is the structure of a web page. CSS makes it pretty. JavaScript makes it functional. So definitely recommend giving that a shot. So I'd probably say, honestly, if I was to recommend it based on this article, it's pretty spot on. This is a good article to reference. In terms of jobs, SQL is number one. I think you would see that and probably say, hey, I should learn SQL. I actually don't think you go down that route, although it is a programming language because it interacts with databases. I don't think it's the best place to start. Personally, I think you should understand something like Python or JavaScript or a back-end language that actually communicates with databases before learning how to actually query them. Well, talking programming languages is fun and all, but what about the money? Show me the money. So on Indeed.com, you can see that the top programming languages to learn are C, C++, Java, JavaScript, Python, SQL, Swift, TypeScript. Wow, it's almost like we just talked about these in the IEEE Spectrum report. So aside from that, we can start to look up from there, hey, what do I get paid on average for these positions? So if we look up Python, for example, which is the number 2 language on jobs and number 1 on the spectrum, $114,000 a year. It's a pretty good payday. Let's look at something like C++. Okay, it's going to say top earners are $167,000, but $120,000 is going to get you a pretty good payday. Let's look at JavaScript in the US. 101,000. So pretty much 6 figures is a wrap if you can understand these skills and become valuable in the marketplace. Depending on the company you work for, they're going to offer you more or less money. But these are the medians, right? These are what you see on average in the US. And I think these are good skills to learn nonetheless. You can do a lot, you can build a lot, they're fun to work with. But to wrap things up, learning Python, JavaScript, C, or C++, you can't miss. You're going to benefit a lot from them, and you're going to learn a lot. So if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.